What's up, podheads? Today we're going to go over the tuning of a car stereo system, an amplified car stereo system, without the use of a DSP. This is a 2005 Kia Sportage, and it has the following equipment. In the A-pillars, I've got a SA3M paired with a SA1T. Those are powered by an SAE 100.4 amplifier. In the front doors, I have dual 6.5-inch LCMRs, and in the rear doors I have a single 8-inch LCMR, and those are powered by an SAE 150.4. For the substage, I have two U-Series 12 inches powered by a SALT 4K. So what we're going to do in this video is we're going to go over setting the gains and setting the crossovers only in the amplifier. So this doesn't have a DSP. There's a couple best practices and actually a couple problems I'm running into with this system. So we'll go over that right now. All right, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the gains on the door speaker amplifier. The reason we're doing that is because we want the door speakers to be the loudest thing in the car. Once we get the gains for that set, we're going to go to the pillar pod amplifier, and we're going to use the gain knob as a volume knob. This is the only time you're ever going to do it. Normally you set the gains to the voltages to make sure you're not clipping, but since that amplifier is way overpowered for those speakers, we want to make sure that we're getting just enough output to those speakers to make it sound good. Okay? And to do this, we're going to be using very simple tools. Yes, this is a multimeter with an oscilloscope function, but I'm going to show you how to set the gains on an amplifier using just the multimeter function. Okay? Okay. Alright, to set the gains on an amplifier like this, what I'm going to do is I'm going to disconnect one side of the speaker wire, so either the positive or negative. In my case, I'm going to take off the negative side of the speakers. And since we're going to be turning the volume on the head unit all the way up, I'm going to disconnect the speakers from the other amplifier as well. Okay, I have the negative side from all the speakers disconnected from the amplifiers. I also have the power disconnected from the subwoofers. So the only thing we'll be doing now is measuring the voltage coming out of the amplifier for the doors, which is this one. All right, so hooking the multimeter up, I have a couple different things. I've got a wire probe here. It's actually got a needle on there that'll pierce the jacket of the wire, and a little springy clamp. The reason I'm doing this is because it's easier to video and do this. So what I'm going to do now is I am going to pick one, either channel 1 and 2 or 3 and 4. I'm just going to tap into the positive side of the amplifier with that, and I'm going to grab onto the negative side of the amplifier like so. So now with the multimeter, we'll be reading voltage. We'll be reading the AC voltage coming out of the amplifier as we adjust our gains. Okay, so I am connected to Bluetooth to the head unit. Right now I have the volume all the way down, and I will be using a frequency generator app on my phone to send a 1000 hertz test tone through the head unit to the amplifier. Okay, so now we're in the back of the car. We have the frequency generator hooked up to the head unit. We have the head unit set to a volume of 34 out of 40, and we are going to send a 1000 hertz test tone and measure the AC voltage coming out of the amplifier. So we will unmute that 1000 hertz test tone, and we can now see the voltage. Let me zoom in on that there. And as I turn it up, the voltage is going to increase. So doing a calculation using Ohm's law, power equals V squared over R, we can then determine the voltage of the amplifier output. Now it is very important to note, let's go ahead and check something out here. So without an oscilloscope, this is a little tricky. You have to do the calculation because this multimeter will measure voltage based on the root mean square method, and it will measure well above what the amplifier can put out as a clean signal. Alright, now mine's beeping. I don't know why it's beeping, but we know based on the calculation we can get to about 24 volts cleanly. So we'll go ahead and set this at 24 volts. Okay, close enough. Now we'll do the same thing on the other one, but we'll only set it to 20 volts because we only want to put 100 watts out to that speaker. Okay? Okay. Now, it is very important that after you get done setting the gains, before you hook your speakers back up, turn the volume on the head unit down. Okay? Because you don't want to hook the speakers back up, turn everything back on, and everything be at full volume. That would ruin your day. Okay? Okay. Alright, so now that we have the gains set on the door speakers, what we'll do is we will turn the gains on the mid-range amplifier, turn those all the way down, because we're going to be using our ear and setting the volume using the gain knob for that amplifier. But here's a problem I ran into. The SA3M is an extremely, incredibly awesome speaker. The problem is that it plays too low. And it plays low really well. So the issue comes in is that an amplifier can only set a high pass or a low pass crossover. It can't do both at the same time. We can set the crossover, a high pass crossover for the tweeters very easily. And I'll show you how to do that. But if you want to get the mid-range and the tweeter to play nicely together, an ideal situation is that you would set a low-pass crossover for the mid-range so that it doesn't play higher than what the tweeter's playing. Problem with that is that it plays everything below that low-pass crossover setting, which means that it will play down to 20 hertz. And by doing so, and sending it gobs of power that that amplifier can put out, it will clip. And it will clip bad. Ask me how I know. I thought the whole fucking car was coming apart. So, there's a couple ways to get around it. Best way would be a DSP. But since in the spirit of this build, we're not going to install a DSP. Another issue, or another possible scenario, would be to get a base blocker, a capacitor. So I did the calculation. A 100 microfarad capacitor in line with that speaker would provide a 400 hertz high-pass crossover. And that would be perfect. But since I don't have any of those capacitors in my possession, what we're going to do is we're going to set a high-pass filter for the mid-range as well. But it's going to be much lower than the tweeter. So we're going to set a high-pass filter for the mid-range at 400 hertz. The problem with that is that the mid-range can also play up to 20,000 hertz, which is great for that speaker. But since we're running a tweeter and a speaker at the same time, the highs are going to get really loud, potentially. So we're going to test it out and see what it does. Okay, cool. All right, so I got a little bit ahead of myself earlier. I disconnected the speakers, right, from the amplifier because we're going to focus on the mid-range and the tweeter in the pillars. Well, first thing we're going to do is we're going to set the high-pass crossover for the mid-range. I want that to be 400 hertz. The way I'm going to do that is I'm going to set my frequency generator at 400 hertz. I have the volume on the head unit up a little bit, enough where I can hear it. Okay. And I have another microphone set up closer to the speaker, so hopefully you can kind of hear the changes. We'll see how that works out. But basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to, on the amplifier itself, I'm going to set it to a high-pass filter. Okay, high-pass filter, high-pass filter. Then I'm going to play that 400 hertz test tone, and then I'm going to adjust the high-pass filter settings to a point where it just starts getting quieter. Take a listen. So as I adjust it, it gets quieter. Down below 400. And then as I turn it up, it gets louder. To a point where it's its loudest, and no matter how much I turn it, it doesn't get any louder. So I want to turn it to a point where it just starts to get quiet. Okay. And there, that crossover is now set. Now we'll go ahead and do the tweeter, which is going to be a little bit weird because that mid-range is going to play the same thing. I want that tweeter to be crossed over at 2,000 hertz. Well, we'll go 3,000 hertz on the tweeter. We can adjust it later. Okay? So I'm going to set a high-pass cross, or I'm going to set a 3,000 hertz test tone on my frequency generator. Play, and we're going to do the same thing. Alright, you can hear it get quiet. All the way loud. And just there. Okay, so now the crossover points are set. Now granted, this isn't the best method. A better method would be to use a measurement microphone, but in the spirit of keeping things simple, we're just using our ears. Now the next thing we need to do is adjust the gains on those to match the door speakers. In order to do that, I got to hook the door speakers back up, and then we're going to start playing some music. Okay. Okay, so I have all the speakers hooked back up, connected to Bluetooth with my phone, and play some music. The goal of setting the gains on the mid-range and tweeters is to match the levels, right? You want the level of the door speaker to match the level of the pillars. You don't want the pillars to overpower the doors. Since we're not using a multimeter, we're not doing this safely. This isn't really a safe way to do it. But it's the easiest way, and the best way if you don't have any expensive equipment like microphones and computers and all that stuff. So what we'll do is we'll find a song, we'll play it at a reasonable volume, and then we will adjust the gains first on the mid-range, and then on the tweeter, we'll adjust the gains until everything sounds good. That's about as best I can say it. Sounds good. This is one of those things that you'll have to play with as you're going and playing and listening to your system. You may feel that it's a little bit too quiet, so turn it up a little bit. Too loud, turn it down. Just adjust it. At some point, you'll be happy with the way it sounds. Don't turn it too far up because we don't want to overpower the speakers. Technically, that amp shouldn't be able to damage the mid-range. It can damage the tweeter, so we want to be very careful not to go too high on the tweeter gains. But yeah, let's go ahead and give it a shot.
Quit being scared. Go get a big booty Latina. All the ball lights on, is your phone dead? Are you dead tired? Did you work all day? Do you got a man? Should I fall back? If I ask for your number, would you call back? Cause I cannot be leaving alone. Go anywhere you want, but we can't go home. Nah, we can't go. She like, I don't usually do this, yet somehow I knew that she would. And I don't usually do this, yet somehow I'm still in this club. And I'm not in here to make new friends, she might have misunderstood. It's that hole in one shit, the stroke is golden. I hit with my 3 wood. I'm talking about, nah, only come around in the nighttime. Nah, girl, you need sun step outside. I'm trying on my moves, but she owing the campaign. Rookie of the year,
cool.
So get her with 10 days.
Good enough. Adjust, play, and that's it. That's the basics of setting up a system without a DSP and without any expensive equipment. The subwoofer, everyone does that with subs. Plug it in, turn it on, and just adjust it how you want to adjust it. That's something completely different I'm not getting into because that's not what I do. So, yeah, thanks for watching. Hope you enjoy. Hope you learned something. Hope that you enjoy your new system. Peace.